It's good to see you today. Appreciate you joining us. It is April 15th. Sort of a somber day, I suppose, but it's April 15th, and our reading comes from 1 Samuel chapter 20 and chapter 21. In yesterday's reading, we read about as David fled, as Michal let him down through the window. His wife let him down through the window, and he escaped, and he flees to Samuel in the account of David there and the prophets prophesying, and then Saul and such things as that. But now chapter 20, you have verse 1. David fled from Naioth and Ramah and went and said to Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my iniquity? What is my sin before your father, that he seeks my life?" Just as we read that, I'm not real sure why he fled from where he was. You know, chapter 20, and chapter 19 ended with Saul coming there, and I suppose that's the only answer. But Saul came there, and then all of a sudden the Spirit of God is upon him, and there Saul is stripped off his clothes, prophesying before Samuel, laying down naked all that day and night. And therefore they say, is Saul also among the prophets? And then it goes right to, and David fled from there and went to Jonathan. And you have Jonathan warning David. This is the account where Jonathan is they're going to work out a plan where you have Jonathan shooting the arrows and basically telling David he needs to flee. He needs to go. This is that chapter. Now, chapter 21, he flees, and it's the account of David and the showbread. He goes, and this account is referenced in the New Testament. And frankly, it is a difficult passage. But the Lord references it when the disciples are gleaning in the fields as they go along, and they say, hey, they're breaking the Sabbath. The Pharisees say, oh, they're breaking the Sabbath. And he says, have you not read what David did? How he ate the showbread, and then the priests, how they profane the Sabbath, and yet they are blameless. And then he says, you would not have condemned the innocent. They needed to learn. And then he references an earlier passage in 1 Samuel. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Anyway, David comes, and it's the account of the showbread, where he comes along. He's been hoofing it, and he's hungry. Those with him, the young men, verse 2, they say they're hungry. All we have is the showbread. And I will say this: all these individuals are going to be killed by Saul and Saul's servant later on. It's a hard passage. David then flees to Gath. And this is the account where he acts crazy. And that's pretty much our reading for today. Psalm 34 goes along with it. You can read that on your own. But I didn't want to really tackle chapter 21, David and the showbread. I wanted to back up, and I wanted to think about Jonathan today. And to look at the account. And let's just read a little bit. I'll stop blabbering. Look at verse 2. Jonathan said to him, after David says, what is my iniquity and what is my sin before your father that he seeks my life? Jonathan said to him, by no means, you shall not die. Indeed, my father will do nothing, either great or small, without first telling me. Why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. Later on in the account, verse 9, Jonathan said, far be it from you. And especially this latter part. For if I knew certainly that evil was determined by my father to come upon you, then would I not tell you? And Jonathan, what he's basically saying, I would suggest, is Jonathan just can't believe it. David says, why is your father trying to your father, the king, he's trying to kill me. And Jonathan is, I don't know if he's in denial or what. Or maybe he really doesn't know, whatever the case may be. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And, as we think about, sometimes people will say or do things that are absolutely horrible, and news of it will get out. And it's sort of like Barnabas's hypocrisy. Even Barnabas was carried away with it. News will get out, and sometimes people will be in denial, and they'll say, no, I don't believe he would say that. I don't believe he would do that. And that's basically where Jonathan is. No, I can't believe it. David says, this is what's happening. And we look back on our own lives and the things that we've said and done, and perhaps as we do that, and it's almost like it's another person, and we think, I can't believe that I did that. I did that. I said that. Own it. Own it. Jonathan, I can't believe that he would do that. And David's saying, this is what's happening. Believe it. People are capable of it. We are capable of it. Sinners are capable of it. And it's a sad thing. And if we have a good reputation, I suppose it's a good thing when people do not quickly believe, it, that we're capable of such things. But at the same time, if a person's reputation, or perhaps if a person's relationship blinds us to something that they are doing or have done, then we need to wake up. Jonathan, I can't believe it. Believe it. Another point I wanted to make, though, is when it's a new moon in the account, and David says, I'm not going, effectively. And Jonathan, there's going to be a vacancy at the table. And as things progress, and let's just read it, verse 30. Because Saul says, hey, where's David? And Jonathan has this story why he's not there. Not exactly the truth, but anyway, and Saul knows it's not the truth. Verse 30, Saul's anger was aroused against Jonathan and said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, you shall not be established, nor your kingdom. Now therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, why should he be killed? What has he done? And then Saul cast a spear at him to kill him, by which Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to kill David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had treated him shamefully. And you can tell Jonathan is hurt by this, obviously. He can't believe that his father would do this, and now it's very obvious. It's very obvious. And as an application, I wanted to make this point. Family can hurt us more deeply than perhaps anyone else. This is Jonathan's own father. And he says, you son of a perverse woman. How does he put it? Hope I'm not hashing it up. You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? Family can hurt us more deeply than anyone else. And it happens. It happens. It is horrible when it happens. But it happens. And Jonathan is hurt deeply by this. And he rises up, and he is, you can tell he's just beside himself in fierce anger. Verse 34, and ate no food the second day of the month. And then he goes out, and it's the account of the arrows. But in that account, one of the last things that's said before they separate, and the lad, the one who goes and picks the arrows up, doesn't know what's going on. Only Jonathan and David knew of this, this code, if you want to call it that. Verse 41, as soon as the lad had gone, David arose from a place toward the south, fell on his face to the ground, and bowed down 3 times. And they kissed one another, and they wept together, but David more so. And I wanted to key in on that last bit there. They wept together, but David more so. Jonathan says to David, go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, may the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. So he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Jonathan understood the kingdom is being taken away from his father. On some level, I think he was starting to get it. And he starts talking about between your descendants and my descendants forever. And he talks about the same thing earlier. That's going to end up being Mephibosheth, if you're familiar with Mephibosheth. David is going to remember when he's king, and he's going to say, is there anybody left of Jonathan's family? And it's Mephibosheth. But my question is, why did David weep more? Why did David weep more? And as they separate, and they both weep, but David weeps more. And it's pure speculation. But to think about it, Jonathan is going to have to go back home. And not much choice in the matter, really. And his father has acted shamefully, and he knows his father has acted shamefully. But there are a lot of emotions going on in Jonathan's head right now. One of them being anger. Was David angry at this point? I mean, there are a lot of emotions going on in both of their minds. But you have the king's son, Jonathan, and you have David. And as they separate, and Jonathan's going to have to go back, and he's still the king's son. He's still Saul's son. And it's just a mess. It's just a mess. But it causes him to weep less. And that's okay, I think. That's okay. Even though Scripture makes that point, they are separating. And the only choice, Jonathan all along, Jonathan is, oh, surely this isn't happening. Surely this isn't the case. Surely my father's not acting like this. Surely he doesn't really want to kill you. And now he has to admit, yes, this is what is happening. And the only answer is, go. Go. And so David goes. And the whole thing is, it's just a sad, sad picture. But at the same time, you see them embracing one another. And you see Jonathan and David and weeping together. And it's sad that they have to separate. But that's what happens. But at the same time, you see two good friends. So, hope the study's been helpful for you. These brief considerations. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you following along in these brief daily videos. Hope you have a good one. Hope you join us for our next brief look into God's Word.